What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be reviewing the Japanese learning community has a huge problem. Now, if you haven't noticed, I'm not actually wearing my cap right now. Elmo is, because today it is so goddamn hot here in Sydney. Now, I know this is not related to the video, but I got sunburned. I was outside for like 15 minutes to pick up eggs from the supermarket, and I got freaking sunburned, man. Like, how does that happen? Anyway, we're going to look at this video.
Okay, hold on before you dislike the video. I know I used Matt vs. Japan in the thumbnail, but this isn't a hit piece or anything like that.
Well, you definitely got me with the clickbait. Gah.
Hear me out. I just think he's inherently related to the topic.
He's inherently related to framing and elitism. Ooh, okay, let's see where this one leads.
I'm going to be talking about. Also, this video is kind of just my opinion, but I've had a lot of people agree with me when talking about it, so I decided to make a video about it. If you happen to disagree with
this is going to be a stock footage video.
me, let me know why down in the comments. The truth is, there is a huge issue within the Japanese learning community. Okay.
Wait, what's that? Hiragana and katakana is a flute to the nose. Kanji is a shotgun to the head. Well, imagine how us poor Chinese language learners feel, man. It's more like a friggin' tank barrel.
Maybe more than just one, but in all seriousness, there are a number of issues within the Japanese.
Why is the Japanese learning community so toxic? I've actually heard about this. I'm not even learning Japanese, but as someone completely external to the community, I've heard that it's a pretty toxic community. I swear, our Learn Japanese is more of a one-upping competition than a community to actually help fellow learners. They literally have threads dedicated to beginner questions, but if you ask a beginner question, you get downvoted and people feel the need to act mean about it. I think I'm going to be referencing the Esperanto community in this video.
Learning community that I haven't seen or heard about in other language communities, or
the Esperanto language learning community, well, the Esperanto community in general has its own issues. I don't think it's going to be similar ones.
At least they're not as severe in those communities. I'm sure every community has to.
Here's an interesting thing. I don't even think that there is a Chinese language learning community, at least not one that I'm really a part of. I pretty much just learnt by myself. Hey, say down in the comments below if you take part in any specific community, or if you're more like a solo person sitting in their room in the dark with the screen glowing mushroom type of person.
To deal with these issues to some extent. Now, I'm sure that you all have your own opinions on what these main issues are, but I'd specifically like to talk about two issues that I think are at the forefront: framing and elitism.
Okay, framing. Not sure what that is. Elitism is definitely an issue we've got in the Esperanto community. So specifically in the Esperanto community, the way elitism shows itself is that some people will spend years and years getting really, really good at the language. And realistically, it's probably the only thing that they've excelled at in their life. And as a result, it becomes like this almost point of pride where they use this as a way to make others feel bad. A great example of this was years ago when I was making videos every day in Esperanto. There would be a few people who would watch every single video, literally hate watch, to try and find that one time when I'd drop the accusative case or I'd make some random little mistake, and then they'd write a paragraph about it, and then at the end say stuff like, you shouldn't be teaching learners because you can't speak the language perfectly, or something retarded like that. Like, it was just so stupid. So that's an issue that we do have in the Esperanto community, but I'm not sure about framing.
And before we go any further, I just want to say I'm definitely not a perfect person, and I'm sure that I'm guilty of some of this stuff sometimes. I'm definitely not trying to put myself on a pedestal here. I just genuinely think that these things are issues in the community. The first main issue...
It's always good to call out issues in your own community. Otherwise, if you don't, what happens is the community will get more and more toxic as time goes along. And then basically it will just be seen as completely negative from external, and you will not attract fresh blood. So as soon as you see something toxic within your own community, you should definitely call it out. And in fact, I'm probably going to do a lot of calling out towards the Esperanto community as part of this video.
Is framing. This is specifically talking about how certain people or content creators frame themselves or other people. Take, for example, how the channel What I've Learned frames Matt vs.
I don't think I've seen their videos. Like, I've heard of this channel.
Japan in this video. White guy speaks perfect Japanese from watching anime.
Okay, yep, I've seen this one. Or I think I've seen a video about this, because there's in fact a few videos about, you know, Matt vs. Japan and how he learnt Japanese from anime, which is a complete load of shit. If you actually listen to a couple of his interviews, you find out pretty quickly, like, he did a shit ton of studying before he went down this whole anime path.
Here's how he did it. Now, that's an amazing title, isn't it? And if true, that's a crazy thing for anyone to do.
Okay, so this whole anime thing, it's not just him. I've heard this from other people before, and It's a load of bullshit. In fact, I so want to one day when I have time do a challenge where I try learn Japanese literally just watching anime without any subtitles. Now, obviously, that's probably going to be like a 20-year mission, so I'll have to do that one after the Dreaming Spanish one. But like, I can imagine I'd be sitting there for like 20 years, and then when I'm 70, I'll be like, yeah, I can speak some Japanese now.
Unfortunately, this title and thus the framing of this video is essentially a lie. It's insinuating that Matt vs. Japan kind of just watched anime and that's how he got really good at Japanese. Now, you can just shrug it off and say, well, it's obviously clickbait, in the same way that videos from creators like Xiaoma are oftentimes using clickbait. And I think that minor clickbait can be a useful tool sometimes.
I clickbait all the time on this channel, but my clickbait is just like stupid clickbait.
But I'd argue that right there is a part of the issue, or at least a symptom of it. We just kind of allow the clickbait, or feel like we had to utilize clickbait to create weird framing or narratives or distort the truth around.
Clickbait it's something you can't get around, like literally. Like I had probably 50 videos or something where it was literally just my face on the thumbnail, and people don't care about my face. My face is not that beautiful. So as soon as I put a couple of silly words in there, they're like, what is this? This man has no neck. I do have a neck, obviously, but like it's not as prominent as my wife's neck.
On learning languages in general. Now, we can blame YouTube for creating an environment that promotes clickbait, or we can be introspective.
No, clickbaits existed long before YouTube. This is not a YouTube issue. I remember back in the day, you'd see the magazine sitting there at the store. On the front cover, they'd be like, rumors swirl around the relationship between X and Y, royalty figure, rah, rah. And you'd be like, oh, okay. And you pick it up and you'd flick through and you find out that they're having a fight over their cat's name. It's like something stupid.
And realize that it's us who are utilizing and promoting the clickbait.
Realistically, clickbait is not a creator issue, and it's also not a viewer issue. It's a human issue, because we love the goosey shit. The goosey shit. We love I can't even say the word anymore because now I'm just thinking about goose. Okay, we love the mushy stuff, you know, the stuff that makes us go, ooh, okay, what's going on here type of thing. Humans are just inherently, like, our ears just pike up when we hear, like, there's some drama happening.
Matt himself even goes into more detail in the actual video saying how he studied, and I think it's pretty obvious that anime was not his only or even his main method of study. He talks about making flashcards, watching other content, reading novels and such, so it's pretty clear that he didn't just learn from watching anime, and again, the one suggesting such a...
He keeps saying anime. Is that the Japanese pronunciation? Because I would just say anime, but is anime how it's actually said?
Thing in this video isn't Matt. For some perspective, I think it's worth looking at the forms of study he did. From what I can find, Matt did a 3-week trip to Japan in high school. Afterwards, he started taking Japanese classes at his high school. While still in high school, he started taking Japanese classes at his local community college.
I actually studied Japanese when I was in high school. I've spoken about it on this channel before, but like I've forgotten everything because, you know, it's school study. You don't really remember. Although I assume if I ever go back to Japanese, I'll probably pull on that one day. But my best experience is I also did a trip to Japan. And as part of that trip, when I went to Japan, I was in a class that went over, but everyone else in the class was a girl and I was the only boy. And apparently, like, Japanese schools were segregated. I don't know if it still is, but like at the time they were segregated. And I remember that when I rocked up, they were like, oh, we can't just put this one poor white boy by himself in a school for like a couple of days. That would be weird, or that would be like scary for him. So they literally put me in an all-girls school. And by God, when my eyes opened to the beauties of the world...
College. He then did a 6-month study abroad program in Japan, and this was all before he even...
Bro, Matt, the short hair look, it does not suit you.
hit college. By the time he...
Yeah, that looks good, Yeah, definitely, keep that style. In fact, you know, I get comments all the time. I know I'm segueing a lot. I get comments all the time on this channel about the fact people are just saying, Evildea, just shave it off. Just shave it off. There's nothing left. Grow a beard. Look like a Viking. Become the man you truly are deep down. But the problem is, just like languages are different, cultural beauty standards are different. Beauty standards are different. So in China, a balding man is not sexy. A man with a big beard is not sexy. In fact, they like their men to be a little bit feminine. Not implying that I'm feminine. They like their men to be like a little bit feminine, you know, baby-faced, you know, very smooth type of thing. To them, that's beautiful. And since my wife is Chinese, she does not like the idea of me shaving off these last few strands of hair I've got.
He was 21, he already had 5 years of Japanese study under his belt. He then took more Japanese classes in college and then studied abroad again, I believe. And I believe he's actually living in Japan now for work. Now,
that's a lot of anime.
This is definitely not to discredit his Japanese ability or his effort. From the sounds of it, he was putting in a lot of time and effort into learning Japanese, which I think is very respectable and important. If anything, I'm super jealous that he was able to take Japanese classes in high school because
Well, I took Japanese classes in high school and it didn't lead to anything, so I don't think that would have been necessarily the thing that would have helped you early on, although it might have, because it just depends if you had an interest in it at the time.
backwater high school
I'm staring at that pigeon on the roof right now. It's getting to me.
didn't have Japanese classes, so I had to wait until I was like 24 years old to go to a proper university to really start learning Japanese. Honestly, I think the whole "I learned Japanese just from watching anime" narrative is a little weird.
Well, I know where this is coming from. So this happens a lot, I've noticed, because, like, for example, here in Australia, we're primarily a monolingual country, especially if you go outside the major cities. And where I grew up in the wild outback of Australia with the kangaroos and stuff, yeah, I actually grew up in the outback. Out there, everyone spoke English, and if anyone came by who spoke another language, you were like, oh my god, look at this highly educated, intelligent being. Like, it was just like a sign of greater intelligence. And I think this is not an Australian type of thing only. There's a lot of places where people see others as being able to speak multiple languages as just being more intelligent. So what happens then is some people want to take that to its extreme, and they're like, oh, well, you know, I just learned this by watching anime, and they don't show all the effort that they did because it makes them sound smarter, more superior in a way. Because if you can just learn by just watching TV, you must be smart, right? As opposed to this idiot over here who's sitting there grinding away every day, studying actively, you know, breaking down texts, sentence mining. You know, that guy, he's clearly an idiot, because this guy over here, all he did was watch anime, and look, he speaks flawless Japanese. So it's kind of like a superiority thing. By saying that I only learnt by anime, I am clearly a higher being, more capable than you.
I've met a number of people in VR chat over the 7 years that I've been playing it who have claimed that they've learned Japanese only from watching anime, but when you pressure them just a little bit, suddenly the truth starts to come out.
I guarantee it's that superiority complex.
Oh, hey, so how did you study Japanese? I've never actually studied. I just learned it from watching anime. Wait, really? So the only thing you watched was anime? You didn't do anything else? You didn't watch movies? You didn't watch any YouTube videos about learning Japanese or anything? Well, I mean, I watched some videos that taught some basic stuff and I listened to Japanese podcasts. Oh, okay. Wait, what about this game? Surely you've learned some stuff by talking to Japanese people here in VR chat, right? I mean, we're all in the
I've actually never used VR chat, but I've heard it's big with, like, Japanese learners. Is this something you guys use very often?
NJP language exchange world right now? Well, yes, of course. My friends help me and teach me Japanese all the time. Oh, okay. So what you're saying is that you didn't actually just learn it all from just anime, right? The interaction always ends up with them admitting that there are a number of other ways that they have learned or are currently learning Japanese, and that's perfectly okay. Just be open and honest about your Japanese learning journey.
Yeah, but if they're honest about this, and they give you all the details, then it makes it look like all they did was grind every day, and it's not as cool as, I just absorbed the language through my superior intellect.
There's no reason to hide the ways or resources you've used to learn the language or to feel shame about how long it has taken you. The only reasons people hide this kind of stuff or frame themselves in a certain way is because they want or need to feel superior to others.
I called it.
Or because they feel like other people will ridicule them. And this right here touches a bit on the elitism in the community, which I will talk about later. Moving on, another example of unfortunate framing is from another creator here on YouTube. And before I go any further though, two things. One, I just want to say that this section has nothing to do with his current Japanese ability or anything to do with him as a person. This is purely just talking about framing. And two, I want to explain what my and many other people's definition of what self-taught is.
There's a different definition of self-taught. Isn't that just I sat at home and I taught myself the language as opposed to taking part in like classes and stuff?
Personally like to use musicians as an example. A self-taught musician is someone who picked up an instrument and learned to play via trial and error and without any guidance. They didn't take classes and they weren't tutored. They just started listening to music and then started messing around with the instrument and found ways to make it sound nice.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
In the case of a language learner, I believe that
What is with that board, man? Look at that. So they've got English, some bunch of names up there, then just random mathematics.
Taught means that, well, no one taught you anything. You didn't go to any classes, you didn't follow any guides, formats, or textbooks, because even textbooks guide you through the language in a specific way and teach you how to learn it. This also means that the people around you didn't teach you anything. Now,
wait, is that his definition of self-taught? That would literally exclude every single human on the planet. Because obviously you're going to pick up textbooks and you're obviously going to speak with people around you. So I don't think that's a good definition.
The issue I have with the way that this person frames himself is that he says he's 100% self-taught. But here's the thing. According to his own video, he lived and worked in Japan for 10 years and didn't know Japanese before going there.
Yeah, but I'm assuming he just taught himself Japanese at home.
Unless you're a total hikikomori and never talk to another human being, if you live in Japan, Japan is teaching you Japanese.
Yeah, but that's not what self-taught is.
Whether it be just talking to random Japanese people or talking to your friends or discussing things for your job, other people are going to be teaching you Japanese. Now,
okay, if your definition of self-taught is that you literally learn by yourself and you do not interact with other humans, then you pretty much get rid of the whole point of having this word. So I think this is a terrible definition for self-taught. Self-taught is, I sat at home, I did the study myself, I went out and I used the language, whatever, as opposed to I took part in courses where other people, taught me type of stuff and, set up the framework and all that. That's basically the dividing line between the two. One is you take part in classes and one is you self-directed.
Now, look, I'm sure he did in fact teach himself some Japanese. Everyone is self-taught to a certain percentage, but for someone to claim that they're 100% is just crazy to me.
Not really. I could say I'm 100% self-taught in Esperanto. Like, I taught myself this language. I did not take part in any classes of any form, and I speak this language, so...
The whole immersion learning method that everyone talks about, and how immersion learning is akin to how babies and toddlers learn languages. Sure, babies and toddlers passively learn languages, but their parents, family, teachers, etc. are actively teaching them.
Okay, so you're confusing the difference between correction and feedback from those around you with self-taught versus, learning with classes and stuff like that. I think this is muddying the waters here, basically. So let's just keep it simple. Self-taught is you're primarily self-directed, as opposed to taking part in some form of course. Now, whether you're getting input or not from others, that really does not take part in the equation here. Now, what he's talking about is input versus, getting feedback on that input. This is a totally different thing.
And surely you wouldn't suggest that a toddler is self-taught, right? And that's exactly what happened with this person in Japan, or anyone that lives in...
A toddler is self-taught, though. They sit there teaching themselves this language by absorbing it from around them. They literally have to be self-taught because at first they understand nothing. But if your definition of self-taught excludes external feedback for basically how you're learning, then you completely destroy the need for this word self-taught.
In Japan, other people, his friends and coworkers and such, were actively teaching him the language, whether they knew it or not. So I don't think it's fair to say that he's anywhere near 100% self-taught. Or rather ironically, if you lived and worked in Japan for 10 years and never learned a single word directly from Japanese people, that would actually be insane and literally like the antithesis of immersion learning. Also, I just briefly want to touch on the topic of hiding criticisms. For those of you who aren't familiar, there's a feature that YouTube creators can use to hide a user's comments. It will hide every single comment that the user has posted and will post, but the user who posted them will still be able to see them.
I didn't even know that was a feature. Okay, cool. But I'll never use it because I'm not the type of person to hide or delete comments. The only time I would delete comments is if you just start spamming the hell out of my channel with the same pointless crap over and over. Then I would delete it.
However, no one else will see them. Unfortunately, this person uses this instantly and constantly towards anyone who criticizes anything he says.
Who is this guy? You've been talking around this guy for the last 10 minutes. Who is the guy? Just name them.
And it's the reason why you only see positive comments under his videos. In contrast, I've left a majority of the hate comments up on my first video, except for some of the super weird ones that were just straight up personal attacks about my appearance or something.
I even leave the appearance ones. It doesn't really bother me at all. If you got an issue with how I look or the way I talk or anything like that, I don't care. Write your comment. It's engagement on my channel, whatever. It's just going to disappear in the comments that are positive anyway, because they're just going to get upvoted and yours is just going to disappear into the abyss. Waste your time.
I think that people should be able to criticize the thoughts and abilities of others, even if I don't agree with their sentiments. Hiding users and their comments is just another way that people try to frame themselves to look better and make it look like everyone is on board with what they're saying. So, interestingly enough, as I was making this video, I came across another...
I'm starting to get a little bit lost with the direction of this video. So at first, it seemed like this was a critique of an issue within the community. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm happy to go down this path and explore this issue. However, now it seems to be gravitating around a specific individual. However, the individual in question has not been named. So if you want to improve your community overall, call out the individual. That would probably be the best way to do this, and give them constructive feedback about what you think they're doing wrong, as opposed to this kind of, generic, just fire out and hope that the person who in question you're talking about hears about this and just, hide behind that. This reminds me of something that really annoys me in the corporate world, where there'll be this one person in a team who'll keep screwing up over and over and over. And everyone knows who the screw up is. But when the emails come out to berate people, they berate the team overall and say, we should be doing better, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. When everyone knows it should be directed at that one individual. Why are you firing this off at the team? Deal with the problem.
Another creator who is utilizing some weird framing techniques. Here is the gist of their video. It takes people 2 years to learn this much kanji, but I did it in only 1 month. Now, you hear this and you think,
Then just call him out. Who is he?
That's a little sketchy, but I guess it's plausible. That's when you need to take that grain of salt. He said that he wanted to speedrun learning how to read kanji and that, as of 2 months ago, he didn't know how to read anything. And here's where the problem is. He also mentioned how he's been going to school in Japan, where he went to Japanese middle school and is currently in high school for 3 years total.
So basically, he's a bullshit artist and you're trying to call him out, but you don't want to mention his name. Cool.
I'm sorry, but there is just no way that you can pass Japanese middle school without being able to read anything, and there's no way that you haven't learned a bunch of kanji in that amount of time. Stop lying for YouTube views.
Call them out. That's the best way to do this. The reason people do this stuff is because no one says anything. And here, what you've done is you've made a video. I feel like you want to get this out there, but at the same time, you don't want to mention anyone because you don't want to cause any problems. Either don't say anything or do something about it, because this kind of half-assed, well, we know who we're talking about, but I won't mention them because everyone knows who they're talking about. I'm not from the Japanese community. I have no idea who you're talking about. So I don't know who I should be watching out for. So just call out the damn names, please.
The second issue I want to talk about is elitism, or at least I think I'm going to call it elitism. I actually wanted to talk about a third issue, gatekeeping, as well, but I think that topic might fit in this category.
There's a few issues, as I mentioned, within the Esperanto community, and I've mentioned one already, but here's another issue that the Esperanto community has. And people hate this when I say this, but this is a perfect example of where you can compare Esperanto to veganism, okay? So the vegan community, 99% of vegans out there are completely chill, normal people, no problem at all. And then you got that 1% of really loud, obnoxious, freaking annoying vegans that make all the other vegans look really bad. The Esperanto community has a similar thing, but we don't call them whatever the vegans call them. We've got our own word for it, which is a talpo or verde de papo, which means like a green pope or basically a mole. These type of people are like hardcore Esperanto ideologues, basically. And they're the type of people who are loud and obnoxious and basically ruin the image of the Esperanto community. Now, I've encountered these people over the years, and like probably this person here, I avoided them and I didn't try to engage with it too much. But when I started making videos in English on this channel, I realized how bad it was, because I started getting lots and lots of comments from people saying, hey, you know what? Previously, I had this really negative image of Esperanto due to XY situation. It's always one of these talpo, or talpoi in plural form. And it turns out Esperanto's not that crazy after all, because they're watching my videos and they see I'm just a chill guy and I'm not trying to force anything upon anyone. But there's these people out there in the Esperanto community, and they definitely do this. Now, I can't think of any particular names right now. Okay, but I'm going to give a perfect example of this in action, like live action. So, for example, many years ago, I used to go to the Esperanto House here in Sydney, and it's basically a community hall where you can meet up with other Esperanto speakers from all over Sydney type of thing. And I would go once a week, and I usually taught there. I haven't done it in a while, but that's what I used to do. And there would be this one talpo. He was this old guy. He would be literally the guy who would wear the Esperanto flag as a freaking cape if he could, okay? He was I don't know why he was that way, but he was that way. And one day my wife decided after many years that she wanted to come check out and see what I was doing. And then he swooped down on her like a freaking eagle on a mouse in the middle of the field, man. And he was like, what's your name? Do you speak Esperanto? And she was like, oh, I don't speak Esperanto. But my husband, why don't you speak Esperanto? It's the international language. Everyone should be learning. And you could imagine her eyes just widened like, what the F did I just get into? And after that, she never wanted to go back again. Just because of this goddamn fool fool, okay? Now, because this guy was like this really old man, I wasn't going to berate him about this stuff because I'd probably give him a heart attack. But these people do exist, and I've seen them online in the Esperanto community. And I've actually started getting to the point now where I'm just calling them out on their shit when I see them commenting and stuff, because we don't need this crap. It does not help our community. And it looks like the Japanese community has a similar problem, but it just comes from a different like area of elitism, I guess. And they should be calling out their problems. Basically, if you don't call out the problems in your own community, that's what other communities are going to eventually see and associate with your community.
This is in reference to people who put way too much emphasis on their Japanese ability, their Japanese knowledge, or their way of learning, and use this as a way to place themselves above others and or put others down.
Yeah, you definitely get this in the Esperanto community. It's basically those who have dedicated their life to like learning Esperanto. It's the one thing that they're known for in their life, and they just want to make themselves feel better. They go on like power hungry type of trips where they show off their awesomeness within the language and make others feel bad.
And I'll say it right here, my Japanese is not perfect, as I'm sure you guys already know. I have a bunch of things I still need to work on. Heck, on my previous videos, I've had some people point out my pitch accent on some of my words. I realized that I still have a lot of room to grow, and that's why I even pinned one of the person's comments, because I want people to learn from my mistakes and be able to learn correct Japanese. It's not about me trying to flex on people or trying to build a brand that suggests I'm a genius or really, really good at Japanese or something, and I'm definitely not going to go out of my way to crap on.
You'll see this in like lots of my old Esperanto videos. There'll just be those comments where someone's pointing out my random problems. And, you know, I do appreciate it. It does help me. But you can see clearly that for some people it comes from a good place, and then from others it comes from they want to feel more superior to you.
Somebody else's Japanese ability. I do think there's one caveat to this, and that's if someone is teaching Japanese on YouTube or something and their Japanese isn't correct, I think it should be pointed out. And sure, if the epitome of the Dunning-Kruger effect shows up, is super rude, starts talking smack, and is tossing around a bunch of incorrect stuff, I think it's fine to shut that down in a constructive way. But let's try not
It doesn't even have to be constructive, just shut it down.
to overwrite other people's language journeys or their experiences with our own. Just because you think that your method is the best, or just because you are good at the language, doesn't mean that what the other person is doing is inherently
I've noticed there's a lot of bald people in the stock footage in this video.
wrong or bad. As I've mentioned in previous videos, people learn better in different ways, mainly in a way that they enjoy and at different speeds. Just because a certain way was the fastest for you doesn't mean that it's good for everyone else. I think it's
Yeah, I go on about this all the time on my channel.
perfectly okay to suggest different ways of learning to people, and it's okay to give your opinion on why a certain way of learning might be good or bad, but you have to do it in a constructive way that isn't attacking the other person. I'll touch on this point more towards the end of the video. I think there's a special kind of elitism in the form of gatekeeping that exists in the community as well, specifically in the form of perfectionism. You aren't allowed to talk about blank because you're not perfect at Japanese.
Yeah, I've had this definitely on my channel, comments where, why are you talking or teaching Esperanto? You're clearly making mistakes. And I'd be like, bro, if you think you're so goddamn good, go do it yourself.
Or you're wrong about blank because you're not good enough at blank. I actually kind of had those kind of comments on my first video, comments crapping on my Japanese and saying it was garbage and that I basically had no right to talk about.
But realistically, you're going to have people crapping on you, no matter what, on YouTube. So some of these things are going to be coming from internal community issues, and others are just going to come from just people being tools.
Reasons. The first is, I think it can sometimes be hard to separate your own skills from your own self-worth. If you've put an extensive amount of time into learning a skill, that means you've put effort, physically, mentally, and emotionally, into it. It means that it has become a part of your life in some ways. Because of this reason, sometimes people make that skill a part of their personality, or it becomes like a personality trait.
That's true, but also some people are just assholes. And they use this skill as a way to justify the fact that they're an asshole. So not everyone is coming from a good place. So not everyone is like, yeah, but I put a lot of effort in. I just want to help other people. And sometimes I can look like an ass in the way I do it. No, some people are literally just assholes, and they use the skill as a way to project their like personal hatred towards other people.
And the second reason is, in the case of content creators, they need to be seen as this amazing expert on the topic, or they feel that people won't ever listen to them.
Obviously, that one's very common, but I don't know why it's so common. You could be the person who's just there, hey guys, let's work together and move forward. So here's an example from my old military days, okay, when you would have to carry the stretcher on your shoulder. So basically, you'd have 4 people carrying the stretcher with the fat guy in the middle who's injured on the stretcher. Now, there doesn't have to be a leader, but there can be one person there whose job is just to make everyone else feel, like they can do this. Just push everyone forward. You don't have to be above them or below them. Just be the guy who makes it a little bit more bearable.
There's a private recording of a certain content creator that got leaked, and in that recording, that person said they wanted everyone to think that they were a god at Japanese, and this was mainly because they have a brand and image to uphold, and they were selling.
The funny thing is, in Esperanto, in my videos, I would always say, Saluton al ciui, jen Evildea via Dio, which means, hello all, I am Evildea, your god.
Courses, and still are.
But that started as a joke on my channel because one day I just accidentally said, your god, and then everyone thought it was funny and I just stuck with it.
Where does that leave us? And what can we do? My thoughts on the matter are, 1, we, both as individuals and as a community, need to stop framing stuff related to Japanese learning in weird.
Yeah, this is not a community issue. This is specific individuals. So that's why you should call out the individuals. Because here just shooting out and saying, yeah, look, as a community, let's come together and do it better. The people who are already doing it better know that they're doing it better. They don't need you to tell them that. What you should be doing is say, hey, Jake, yeah, I'm talking to you. Stop being a dick.
And unrealistic ways. Let's just be open and honest about how much time we've spent learning Japanese, in what ways we've acquired the language, and even admit our mistakes and accept criticisms. Honestly, this isn't just for the sake of other people in the community, but it's beneficial to ourselves as well. You need perspective and humility to grow as a person.
Okay, so the problem overall, though, is not the community. It's a few bad eggs. And you need to put the limelight on those bad eggs so that they know 100% that everyone's looking at them going, stop being a dick, mate. And then they probably will stop being a dick, or they'll become more dickish and then they'll get forced out of the community. Because sometimes some people just shouldn't be in a community because they just make it toxic. Okay? Sometimes you gotta ban people.
2, let's not shove learning styles or information down other people's throats. Why the hell are you doing X? You should be doing Y. Let's try and refrain from doing stuff like that. It's incredibly unhelpful and just makes the Japanese learning community look like it's filled with a bunch of toxic and elitist pricks. Not to mention, it'll just make people not like you. It's perfectly okay and potentially even helpful to suggest things to other people though. Hey, have you ever heard of blank? It was really helpful for me.
Nothing wrong with any of this.
Maybe you can try it out and see. Honestly, I think too many people get stuck in the trap of, well, science says this is the best way, so if someone doesn't do it this way...
I hate that one. Science says that this is the best. When we all know that science is constantly evolving and changing, and there are certain studies and things over time that have been completely flipped on their head because they were built on top of really weak science. So what I always say is that you should try different things until you find the thing that you enjoy doing. Because it doesn't matter if there's a 5% efficiency over here if you hate doing it.
They're doing it wrong and or they're stupid. Let's not forget that science is oftentimes lacking in nuance. For example, let's hypothetically say that science says that podcasts are the absolute best way to learn Japanese. If a person hates listening to podcasts, then podcasts aren't going to be good for them.
100% agree.
Because they're going to get bored, annoyed, or lose focus easily. But science said that podcasts are the best, so you're doing it wrong. This kind...
You'll get that one with the pure input community. Science says that the best way to learn a language is just to watch lots and lots of content, so you must be doing it wrong. You need more content. More content! More content!
Rhetoric doesn't help anyone. It makes the other person feel bad and might make them less likely to learn the language, and it will just make you look like a prick. For example, in a previous video, I showed that science proves that you learn better when you enjoy the thing that you are learning, but if someone has the ability to just purely grind a language and get results in spite of not enjoying it, I'm not going to tell them that they're stupid. I might...
You better not tell me I'm stupid. I'm a grinder. I'll take that personally.
Suggest something like, hey, have you been able to find any ways of studying that you enjoy? That might help you retain the information even better and you might get even more progress. There's a number of...
I've spoken about this many times on my channel. Basically, it comes down to if you want to truly help someone learn and you truly want to act like a teacher or a mentor, the best way to approach it is to find out what they enjoy doing and then focus on finding tools that fit with that method.
reasons why the Japanese learning community is memed on as being super toxic and elitist, and I'd personally like to change that. Learning Japanese can be very fun and incredibly fulfilling, but the Japanese learning community has created some very tall hurdles and obstacles that people have to try and navigate. Let's just try our best to be open and honest about our progress and mistakes, as well as refrain from shoving information and such down other people's throats. You 100%.
Okay, so I've got pretty much the gist of the video, and it's starting to get a little bit repetitive right now. So overall, I'd say it was an okay video. The issue was that there is a problem. He is trying to point out the problem, but this video is going to make no difference because no one's going to change as a result of this video. Because those who are already conducting themselves in a good way, they don't have to change anything. And those who are bad apples don't think they're the bad apples. And you spoke around, like in a circle around certain people, but you never mentioned names, so those people are never going to change. So this video overall, it actually feels like kind of pointless. Realistically, it didn't really achieve much. So what I would say, if you truly want to help the community, point at those bad apples and say, guys, you need to do better. Not the community, you. Specifically you. So basically what will happen as a result of that is, one, they will fix up whatever it is that's the issue. They may be a bit pissy and they won't like you anymore. Too bad, that's part of life. Or two, they will try to go to war. They will like dig into their position. They'll say, no, this is the only way. And as a result, the entire community will turn against them and quarantine them off. As long as what you're saying is justified. So if that person is actually being a toxic ass and you've got the proof and the receipts to back it up, the community will back you up. No one likes a toxic person. But also, it looks like no one in your community is prepared at this stage to put their foot down and say, hey, we need to self-regulate. Okay, that's pretty much it. I'll see you all in the next video. And if you're not there, well, then I may call your ass out.